like I said, if you're not really into tech, we're basically making flashcards. This is something you can do with actual index cards when you go back in the classroom, or you might want to keep using Google Slides. There are some advantages to using technology. And in all fairness, I'm not a super tech savvy person, but whenever I'm using anything, whether it's paper, pencil, technology, I really want to know what it will do for my particular learners. So is it actually going to deepen their learning? And I think that the benefit of using Google Slides and having students do a lot of the work, the bonus benefit is you not doing as much work, but the benefit is that they will be able to use words, not just recognize them the next time they come across them, but really carry them with them in the future, and you'll see them in their future writing and speaking. I also really believe in this time in not using anything with extra passwords if I don't have to, so that students can just get straight into it. So offline, I know a lot of us use these commercially made flashcards with younger learners or less proficient learners. That is something that I haven't always had access to. So that's when I started using flashcards with my learners. On the top, you will see one side of a flashcard made by an adult learner. Her first language was Chinese, but she used Google Translate to get a Spanish translation for her classmates. And you can see that her usage wasn't perfect, but I can see from her sentence that she generally understands the word, and she was able to teach this word to her classmates. I'll go into more how the students share their words with one another. This bottom example, the picture and explanation isolated, were made by a fourth grader. So again, maybe not the most sophisticated definition, but she did it in her own words. And I could see, I don't know if everyone can make out, she says, I feel isolated when my friends are sick. So I see that she understands the connotation is kind of a negative emotion, and I feel confident once I check her card that she'll be able to teach a pretty accurate meaning to her classmates. So when we move online, we can add a deeper level of meaning, or accessibility, we might say, for these ones especially. So I've been mostly stealing pictures from the internet, not anything that anyone is charging for. But in this case, I found kind of a little card with the word and the picture, and I've recorded audio so that my students can, if they can't read or if they don't know how to pronounce this word, they can listen to me pronounce it. I don't think my audio is playing for you all, right?
No, we heard you. That was good.
Okay. So optionally, I can go over how to do this at the end, but basically, I'm going to go out of present mode. I have created a little manipulative that my students can use like a card online. And it's easier for students who have computers. I've noticed that my students with iPads have trouble moving these around, but I could do a word sort just like I would do with a paper card. So I might have hat and hot, and they could organize their short vowel sounds, or whatever word study you might be doing. So I would use this. I use this now with young learners, but you could also maybe use it with sight students at older ages. The thing we'll focus on today, I'll go back into present mode, is having students each have a slide in a shared Google Slides presentation, and they will be responsible for a word or a collocation, a group of words, and they will have to define, give an example sentence, give a translation, basically make something that will help their classmates understand the word. So like I said, nothing super fancy, but it can be very powerful. And just to talk about where I see the power of this process, it's not so much the product. The product is basically, they're just making a slide. But the process, I think, can have a really deep impact on students' word knowledge and retention. So, of course, it will be relevant to our class content. I'm going to choose words that are useful for each of my learners. So I've done this with adult learners in their 60s. They've used the internet and they have taught words. Some of them had very low English proficiency, and they were still able to learn a word that their classmates didn't know and teach it to them, which is really powerful. So I will talk about this first. This is the first step in the process. And I think that this is something that we're all pretty good at, looking at a text and saying, okay, I know these are the words my students don't understand, and I think my least proficient student could probably grasp this word. So I'll go into that first. And then we'll look at a few online tools that our students can use to interpret the words that we give them. This part, I believe, is really deepening our students' 21st century skills. I don't know about your learners, but when I was in a high school this past fall, they weren't really using dictionaries, and I think they will really need those when they go to college, so that they can, when they see a word they don't know, not only look up the definition, but interpret whether that definition is the one they're looking for. The nice part about doing this during remote learning is that students can collaborate. I would have them work in partners, and they're also going to be presenting to one another. So they have to put their definitions in words that their classmates will understand. And they have to present. So a lot of my students don't like presenting, but it's basically a 1-minute presentation. Everybody else is doing it. They rise to the occasion. And of course, I don't know about you all, but I've had trouble balancing creating content and then also creating assessments for remote learning. So the assessment is, this whole process is the assessment. And again, for our very low learners, I can show you how to make those word cards at the end if we have time. So just to show you, I'll show you 2 examples. This is an example from a text set. I don't know if you can see the theme. These are words that I saw across a series of texts that I put together. And basically, I organize my words. The way I say it to the students is easy to draw, medium to draw, and hard to draw. And if you want to use more technical terms, these would be called concrete words in second language acquisition study. So concrete words are more likely to have a meaning in most languages. Abstract words maybe are idiomatic and don't have a translation in every other language. These are more likely to be nouns or actions, and they're very easy to visualize and really easy to draw. So I can draw a captain, I can draw a cockpit. I can't really draw inspiration. And my students sometimes think that these are the easier words, but that's not always the case. I usually put my cognates kind of more toward the left of the screen, and words that don't necessarily have translations toward the right. And you see those word strings are getting longer as we move toward the right of the screen. Does anyone have any questions about this? I'll show you another example. This is the example that I used with the adult learners. As you can see, the easy to draw words are not necessarily easy words. And what I do is I put these words up, usually put it on the board, but in this case, online. And I let my students choose the words so that there's a little more buy-in, a little less complaining about what they get assigned to them. You don't have to do that. It takes a little more time, but I like giving students the option to, if they're a weaker student, choose a word from over here, and sometimes they will. And that's where having them work in partners will help them, navigate those harder words. I bolded 2 words to remind me to mention a couple of things. Recommendation is a cognate in Spanish, and I'm not sure about French, but even a student that doesn't have a lot of education in their first language, if they know this word in Spanish, they are well on their way to being able to teach this to their classmates, even though it looks like a giant word. I could talk to that student about the difference between the verb form and the noun form. There's a lot of opportunity, even though it's a cognate, to get into deeper word knowledge with them here. whereas one of my more advanced students might work on a word like model that has multiple meanings. And I would just check in with them, you know, so I'm not doing all the work of creating, you know, finding pictures and creating these flashcards. But your role during this process would be to check in with the students, make sure they're looking at the right meaning, that they're using their own words. So I would check in with a student with a word like model and make sure that they're going for the meaning, or at least toward the meaning of the word as they'll see it in our unit.
And can I just add on to that, Eleanor, what's great about Google Slides is the collaborative component, where as the student's working on it, you can be checking in on them on real time, either with a comment or adding on. So you're adding that feedback as they're creating the flashcards.
Yes. One thing I'll also mention is you might really see students going in not the direction you expected with the word. So for example, when I taught adults, my former architect student picked the word prop, and I meant prop like a prop you would use when teaching, and she was drawing like an elaborate architectural prop. But it still helped her understand, and when her classmates learned it from her, when they saw it in their reading, they were able to make that jump. So even if your students don't go with the meaning you intended, you're actually allowing them a chance to develop multiple meanings of the word. So I'm just going to show you a couple of online resources. I would love if you shared any others that you know about in the chat. I'll just quickly show you a few of these, and then I will ask you to create your own flashcard. So the finished product is going to look something like this. We saw this a few minutes ago. And I'm going to use this collocation just to show you that if you're assigning word strings to your students, this isn't really an easy process. This isn't just looking a word up in a dictionary. They're really going to have to figure out the meaning of their word. So I'll start with two learners' dictionaries. They're both British, and you will have to select American English because the amount of difference is too great, and we want to be able to access the American accent. So if I search for believe, I can actually try to find my word string. This is Oxford Learners Dictionaries. I think Sheila will put this link in the chat a little later. So I use Oxford and Cambridge. I would love to know if anyone uses something different. And they both have, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, Danette brought up Rewordify, which I know you're familiar with as well.
Okay, sure, we can look at that too. So I use these two. I don't like any of the American ones, but I just set it to American English. And you might have noticed already, Oxford Learners Dictionaries has fewer ads. The other one is Cambridge, which has more distracting ads. I like Cambridge because I can instantly translate to my first language. There are like dozens of languages in here. It's not showing all of them, but there are many. I'll just skip you. So all of these. And I'm going to I'm looking for believe in myself, believe in yourself. And this dictionary isn't really explaining that to me. It's believe in something. Okay, so this is something, again, that would be for my more advanced learners ideally to choose. And I'm not necessarily getting that meaning that I want here. Let's look at this dictionary. So this dictionary has believe in somebody. It's getting a little bit closer. That might help me understand the meaning. And for your overeager students, there's a lot of great language here that they can study. Both of them have the ability to listen to an American accent.
Believe.
That didn't sound very American. And this one also allows them to create word lists. So I should be logged in. And I can add this word to my word list. It's not the best thing, but it does allow students to export a list of words that they've looked up, so they could say use this across the school year and keep their words here. And it also will give them a little quiz. So not as aesthetically pleasing as some other tools, but I like that it keeps everything, all their research together. My favorite kind of online dictionary is wordreference.com, and that is more likely to have idioms and collocations. It has a lot of example sentences, a lot of translation, and it also has forums. So if their question isn't answered, I know I've used this to get my questions answered about Spanish. The last one I'll show you is something I discovered through New York TESOL's great list of online resources for remote learning. It's called Youglish, and this is probably best for older learners. I don't know if it censors anything. It's working with YouTube, but it allows our learners to hear.
Are you gonna believe in yourself? Are you gonna believe everybody?
It allows them to hear pronunciation, seems to be the point of the site, but I like the context that it gives. So it will take me through many YouTube videos, and it will go right to the clip where someone is using my phrase, not just my word, but my phrase. And I can go forward and just watch dozens of videos. And I'm
Feel and apply your God.
That these are all inspirational. So it's helping me understand the way that people use the phrase. Also, for my most basic words, those more concrete words. So I think one of them was airfield. This is kind of self-explanatory, but I can use Google kind of as my corpus. I can see where it's used, and I can use Google Images. Remember, I'm asking my students to put an image on their card, so everyone will be using Google Images, but definitely for those concrete words or for my less proficient learners, Google Images will really help them understand when something like this is too much for them. What else did I want to say? I don't know, it sounds like most people here today are familiar with Google Slides, but I'll just point out quickly that you can also search Google Images within Google Slides. I like to use Google with older learners because there are more results. If you do it within Google Slides, I think it's a safer search, and there's less copyright infringement if you use these images. So this is nice if your students are younger, not as tech savvy. You can search for images within. Any pressing questions in the chat, Sheila?
No, there's just a couple of resources that people are sharing here. I'm wondering if maybe I can copy them onto your slides so that towards the end it's all kind of just in one place. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, maybe the slide would be good.
Cool. Yeah, I'll put that maybe on the last slide.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I think we're going to get into it if there aren't any questions. And actually, as we get into the work portion, I guess, is when we can answer more individual questions. So I'm going to ask you to choose a word from one of these lists. I'll put this one up for a few seconds and the other one. Just choose a word, keep it to yourself. We might have some repeats. Or let's be honest, you can choose any word you want. And I have created I guess this would be a good time to share this link, Sheila, or I can do it if you want. I want you to just try to create a little flashcard, try to make it look nice, pretend you're going to be teaching it. And we're going to make our own little class set here just so we can see the power of this process. If you do not feel comfortable using Google Slides, you can just do it the way that I've always done it. with my students, just get a piece of paper and try to make a beautiful flashcard.
So the webinar class set deck is the one to share?
Yes.
Okay. So the link I just put in the box is Eleanor's class set for everyone to create their own flashcard using these resources.
So use whatever is useful to you here. If you have done something like this before, maybe you just want to explore Youglish or, you know, whatever, wherever you are, whatever is helpful for you. But I think if we got a few up here, we could see, I'm seeing on my screen how many people are in here, and I'll be able to see everybody working at the same time. So that should give you an idea of how collaborative it is. Sherry, you can choose any word that you want. So it could be from this list, or it can be just a word, any word. Maybe a word that you need to teach your kids tomorrow.
Or you can challenge yourself and go for the hard to draw ones. Eleanor, a question here. How would you use this flashcard set? As part of a class or homework? I think you're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I just saw that question and I probably would have forgotten to talk about it, so thank you. So let me actually, I don't know, let me just check what people are doing. Okay, so some people are working. So this is how I've done it. For my students, we had been talking about part of speech and stress syllables from September, so they were really comfortable with that. If you've never done that kind of work, I would just start with working in class and having students do maybe these 4 things: meaning, translation, picture, example sentence. And you can add layers of word knowledge each time you do it. Maybe push them to, you know, identify the stress syllable. That will help their classmates when they're studying alone. But then I would say as students get comfortable with the process, which even when I worked with adult learners, they actually got comfortable with it quite fast, and then you can assign it as homework. And after a few minutes, I'll show you how they can start sharing their presentations with one another. But as you see immediately, let's say I'm working on my word, I get bored, I can just go look at this person's word. I just learned this word. Ooh, nice. So I think we could maybe spend maybe 3 more minutes on this. Somebody here created like a table. So I guess, yeah, students could have their different styles, and then if everyone loves one, you could run with that. So a lot of different styles, and I think that learners really love, like, for Believe in Yourself, there's a lot of Instagrammable, images. I don't really know what they're called, but you know, they can get teenagery with the images if they want. Okay. So maybe we'll spend one more minute on this, and I just wanted to point out something about the management of this. So it looks like people, I created a billion slides, so people just quickly jumped on and grabbed one, and I didn't notice any fighting over a slide. You could also have all the words, so I could fill in my words ahead of time, or you could fill in the students' names, assign a slide to a student ahead of time, so that there isn't that, you know, in our class we've experienced everyone jumping to the same slide, and so you could create. Sheila, did you do that ahead of time for your students? Did you assign the words to them?
No, I didn't, but so Eleanor, when she showed us this idea in our class, I was just so blown away, where I actually did assign each student a slide, and they were able to all work on one slideshow, and this is with 7th and 8th graders, and they absolutely loved it and could look at each other's work, which I know is really challenging, but when I did it, they each made 5 different flashcards.
Oh, okay.
So while you're here, Eleanor, just because the audio is kind of, a couple people have brought it up, will you show us now? Because I still don't know how to add audio either.
Okay, could I show that to you a little later? I just want to go over
Absolutely.
the presentation part. And also, just as a disclaimer, my way of doing audio is probably not the best way. But it's pretty fast, so I think it's worth showing you, and you might be able to find a faster way. So there was something else I wanted to say. So Sheila mentioned that her students did 5 words each. One thing that I really liked about this, as well as, oh my goodness, as well as allowing me to check what everyone is doing, make sure they're not headed in the wrong direction. If this person has finished early, she can go grab another word and make another flashcard. So it kind of helps with your time management. So this is what I've done in person. I don't know, Sheila, if you had your students present. It looks very intense, but I'll explain it and then I'll get to the adding audio. So what I've done is had students teach their word to the class. Maybe not every student, depends on your class size. And what I do is on day 1, honestly, I started with my students who I knew would give a good presentation and would teach the word really well, so they could model that to their classmates. But you could also start with the words that the students will encounter in their first text of the unit, or with the more concrete words. And every day just have 5 quick 1-minute presentations. So every day at the start of class, you're spending 5 minutes, everyone's learning a few words. And if the student kind of didn't teach the meaning you were looking for, you could clarify that in that time. Then to kind of review the words, after we've gone through all the words, I have students work in groups. So I guess most people aren't using Zoom anymore, but if you have some kind of breakout rooms or small Google Meets, students can meet in groups, and you kind of change the grouping each day so that students end up teaching everyone else their word again. So not just in front of the whole class, but they'll actually be talking one-on-one or in a small group to present their word again. So I'm cognizant that people don't want to use a lot of class time for teaching vocabulary, but again, that retrieval is really important. And I've seen them really taking the time to teach one another, and maybe they discuss it in their first language to make sure they're really understanding it. And then I'm kind of associating the word with my classmate who explained it to me. They'll be seeing the words many times. So if you try out something like this, it's well worth a few minutes a day. When I share the slides, I included the text that I just took my words from. So you'll see that when the students go to the text, they are now empowered to understand words that might have tripped them up. As we know, students need to know almost 99% of the words in a text to feel that they understood it. So this is a great way to prepare them to really comprehend what they're reading in class. I would pre-teach a few words at the beginning of the unit myself, just to make sure that everyone knows the context. So, for example, when I did this with my grad class, we were doing the aviation set, and someone had the word liftoff. So I wanted to make sure that they knew that our unit was about aviation, and when they looked at the word liftoff, they would know which meaning I might be looking for. Okay, so to get to the audio, I hope no one is sorely disappointed, but I created these little word studies. As I said, Sheila was my professor last semester, and she recommended that we do some word sorts online, but my first graders many of them are L's, and many of them are reading at a kindergarten level. So I wanted to add audio. So this is the first one I made. It was more grammatical, and I basically took pictures and then I made a little text box. So it sounds like the people who are on here would know how to do that, but I'll just quickly. Maybe I had hat and I'll do hut. So if I was doing short vowels, I could have my hat card that I showed you earlier, and I could have hut. And what I'm going to do first is put these close together, maybe center this. And I'm going to arrange. If you've used PowerPoint, it works similarly, and I'm going to group these. So basically right now these are two different objects, and if I try to move one, it won't be with its partner. But if I select both of them, I can make them be one object. Unfortunately, while we can insert audio into Google Slides, it seems like none of us have yet figured out a great way to, well, there is no way to record audio directly into Google Slides. So if I can use my document camera, I will show you an app that I used. I believe that to record audio, you need to record in one of these two formats. And I think there's a third format that is common, but that you cannot, I believe you cannot upload to Google Slides. So if anyone knows anything about that, you can put it in the chat. So what I did, I will open my document camera. I actually got an app on my phone. I believe if you have an iPhone, let's see if this will even show. If you have an iPhone, you have a voice memo app. I think that does save in one of the correct formats, so you could use that. I have an Android, so I've got this app. You probably can't see, but it's called Easy Voice Recorder, and its logo, let me focus. Its logo is a little blue microphone. Okay. This is the part that might impress you or disappoint you, depending on what you've found. It's usually fast. Okay, there it is. Okay, so you'll see some of the words that I made cards for: French fries, grandmother, the park. And today I made hat to make that hat card. So to make hut, Sheila, are you able to see this okay?
Yeah, we can see it, and I also put links to both of those apps in the chat.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm just going to show it to you. You might find a better way. I think there might be some Google Chrome extensions, but this was the first thing I found, and I didn't think it was too hard, so I've been running with it. So I can spell my word correctly and record it. You might have to record a few times to make sure you're enunciating well enough. Hut. and then I check it. And what I like, okay, it's not on my computer. I am gonna have to do an extra step, but I can put it right into Google Drive. I apologize, I should have checked how my phone worked with the document camera, but I can save it right to Drive, and I created a folder in Drive called Audio. So I'm going to switch to that. Okay, so if I wasn't explaining it to you, so far I've spent about 1 minute creating this, and I spent 1 minute recording my audio. And I just pull from, I pull from my own Google Drive folder. There's Hut. And it's a little messy. It doesn't always stick together perfectly, but you can then add that to your group with the picture and the word, and students can move it around. Again, if students are working on an iPad, I noticed, I think I saw in the chat something about students having trouble playing audio on the iPad. I just know that my students have trouble. They're little, they're first graders. They have trouble moving the cards, and I also have trouble moving the cards on my iPad, but I'm not sure about the sound. So that's what I've been doing. I'm not sure if it's the easiest or the best for the kids, but just to get some model pronunciation up there for them. And I'll show you another.
Eleanor, can you, before you jump off, can you do the group function one more time for people who are new to it?
Sure. So I always go to arrange. So right now I'm going to ungroup them. Let's say I put the wrong audio on there or something. Well, now these two are stuck together. Okay. So I did notice that it helps if I do just 2 at a time. Okay, so I select my text box, I hold down my control key on my keyboard, and I also select the picture. And then I go to arrange and group, or it looks like there's a key stroke to do it. And maybe I can do all 3 at the same time, but I know for some reason when I was creating them, I didn't seem to be able to. So then I come back and I group my audio with them. Right now it's behaving really well. I've noticed that sometimes they don't all move together, but on the whole they do. And I've assigned word sorts with these to students, and most of them can do it and turn it in, show me what they know. Roshi, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. People are, you made some really beautiful word sorts using this function, which I think for younger learners is great.
Yeah, so you can put in anything. You can put in their first language. You see here an example of the audio not going where it's supposed to. But even if using that app does seem a little tiresome, just using words, if they're able to read words and pictures, you don't necessarily have to add the audio portion. So this is something, like I said, I use with younger learners, but if I had a SIFE student in a class of older learners, maybe while everyone else is doing this, and I'm not spending time making these, I could have spent my time instead making some of these for my SIFE learner. So I think I will go ahead and share this with you. Any questions or comments or insults, or should we take a look at some of these? That's about all for me.
Yeah, so as you were talking, Eleanor, and people were sharing things in the chat, I added all of the resources that people mentioned so they can refer back to it. Should I now put this presentation for everyone to have it?
Sure, if you don't mind, and maybe we can just check that everyone's able to open it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm sharing the link to today's presentation. Eleanor, people were very excited about the grouping function, and I'm very excited about the audio, but even more pumped that you showed us so many different tools. We're using the document camera, the cell phone. It felt like you were right next to us showing how to use everything.
Well, thank you. I hope, I mean, I think there's probably a way to do it online, but for having to move it between your phone and computer, I found that this app to be pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you everyone for coming. I guess I'll do another, leave us on this slide. Unless there's anything that came up in the chat that we should take a look at together. But thank you everyone for coming.
Let's see our words. Let's see the flashcards we made.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we have establish.
I like the way someone even put a box around to make it look like a flashcard.
Right. And I think, again, when we're back in the classroom, if you wanted to make this both online and offline, you could have the students do the work on the computer, and then you could print these and make a physical word wall with them. Wow. Oh, we have 2 meanings of warm.
Mm-hmm.
2 pictures.
Oh, that's great.
Highlight.
Ooh, Dr. Becker has a question here. How do you avoid students just copying and pasting?
Well, I was going to say, it looks like someone copied and pasted, which is fine. I feel like if I'm thinking about my learners, I feel like they would get enough out of this. I think that, so I think some cultures also are, so when I taught adults, a lot of my learners were Chinese, and that particular class, they didn't mind copying and not understanding. So if they didn't understand the sentence, they would still feel good that it was there and that it came from an authoritative source. And there was only so much negotiation about that I could engage in with them. But they still had to explain their word in English, and if they wanted to, in Chinese, to their classmates. So at some point, they were having to explain this word in English that their classmates could understand, which was my goal. So ideally, these would be something that, and it looks like this one and all of the ones that I see, students could, for the most part, look at them on their own and learn something from them, even if they might have different visual styles. But at some point, I think the presentation part is really important, not just having this as something they might look at, but having them present in small groups and to the whole class is what will push them to make it actually understood as opposed to reading.
And I think just to tag onto that, Eleanor, the benefit of these flashcards, the way you've created it and having students show their understanding so much, is that they're able to learn how to find information on their own. And they're not just kind of waiting and saying, I don't know what this is. It's really giving them an opportunity to find and use resources so that they can learn and become more independent.
Right, and I think just accepting that, for example,
I like
sprinkle was in our text, like sprinkle, it obviously wasn't about a donut, but we kind of navigated that as a class. So the student who had sprinkle, she drew a donut, and we all learned it as how it could be a noun and an action. And then when we got to our text, it was a slightly different meaning. It was like sprinkle vocabulary or something. But we were all able to kind of make that jump together and to recognize that, oh, she had this word, she wasn't sure if it was a noun or a verb, or if it was silly that it was about a donut. So eventually they're going to have to look up a word by themselves and see that it has multiple meanings and it doesn't make sense the way they thought it would. But this kind of frees you up to talk to them about that as their classmates are working.
This one's interesting because it's a model standing next to a model.
I know, I was thrown off by that one. I thought she was the model, but the car is the model.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it looks like everyone kind of went in a different direction, but they're all giving us something. Okay. Any final questions or anything to share about, looks like a lot of resources were shared. Does anyone want to do a little plug for any of these?
My only contribution here was the Learner's Dictionary. I know you shared two, but I like the Merriam-Webster one. That's the one is my go-to.
Okay, great. Is that this one, or that's one that you didn't add in?
Yeah, it's the third one there, Learner's Dictionary.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm happy to stay on, and I know there were a couple of people that aren't as comfortable with Google Slides. If you'd like me to go over anything again about creating the cards or the audio, I'd be happy to stick around and do that. Thank you everyone for listening, and good luck with the last few weeks of remote teaching.
I have a quick question. When you're doing the share out, you said what you teach your group, then you teach the group behind you. Do they continue to teach the same word over and over, or do the students have to teach a different student's word?
That's right. I'm sorry. I saw your question and I didn't answer it. So this is how I taught it in person. And actually, as people are leaving, I just wanted to say, I had 2 different classes and I gave them 2 different class sets. So let's say this was my morning class and you guys were my afternoon class. And you did the word pilot and you finished early. And Remy from the morning, he did the word aviation. I might give you Remy's card. I might share this with you, and I'll say, okay, he made this card. I want you to make sure you understand this word, and you're going to teach that to your classmates. So they actually become responsible for teaching more than one word. But yes, generally they'll be teaching the same word again and again. So if my word is, pilot isn't very hard. Let's say my word is avid. I should be someone that really understands this word because it's not just a face value word. It has a very specific meaning. And I'm going to teach each of my classmates this word and make sure they really get it. I'm going to give them, so maybe my flashcard only has this one example sentence, but I've done a lot of research, and if I'm talking to you as my classmate and you don't understand, I'm going to start telling you the other things I learned along the way until you get it. And I might, if we share our first language, start explaining it to you in my first language as well. But basically, when I did it in person, there would be 4 tables. So the first day, table 1 just teaches each other. The next day, table 1 and table 2 talk to everyone at the other table, make sure they all know your word. The next day, table 1 will work with table 3. I'm not exactly sure how I would do it online, but I think I would, for me, since I've done it with tables, I assume you might have your students in groupings already, and just kind of figure out a way like group 1 will work with group 3 on Tuesday and they'll work with group 4 on Wednesday. So yes, the student will be teaching their word dozens of times, but they'll be learning a new word each time they talk to someone. Would that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Someone record audio on WhatsApp? I'm assuming not, but that would be nice.
I thought yes. I had seen that question and I thought you could save the message from WhatsApp to your phone and then just upload it to your Google Drive.
Yeah, that might work. I've never done that. I'm imagining if you if you're, I don't know if this person or she, if you use WhatsApp to communicate with your students, you could definitely almost do the flashcards in WhatsApp. But I'm not sure about that. How many people do we have left? Sheila, you were able to share the presentation, right?
Yep, I believe so. Let me see if there's anybody looking at it now. Yes, everybody got it.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, since we're still on here, I could try the WhatsApp thing. I don't know if she's still here.
I'm going to stop the recording. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.